Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the Dealer Insights podcast, where we go under the hood, bumper to bumper, and just about everywhere in between, discussing topics important to dealers of all types and sizes. Your time is valuable, so thanks for riding along for this episode of Dealer Insights.
Welcome back to Dealer Insights. Wow, we got a great one today. You guys are going to love this because we are welcoming someone who has not been on the podcast yet, and that would be Thomas Howe, the CTO at Strolid. Welcome, Thomas. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for welcoming me. I'm happy to be here.
It's going to be a great episode. Vinny, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean.
I love you guys' enthusiasm. It's like you guys are so docile out there in Massachusetts or East Coast land, wherever you guys are today.
Reserved people.
Yeah. Well, listen, for the audience, whether you're listening, whether you're watching, or both, today we're going to actually start to uncork a little bit more of things that we've teased in previous months around artificial intelligence, AI, as it relates to the automotive industry. But we are looking at it from a perspective that is really one that focuses on customer service, what happens within BDC, what happens within lead handling, and how the human empathy side of what happens in these conversations is so critical that we want to try to help not only educate the audience, especially our dealer audience, but also help you kind of set your mind at ease on some things and feel a little bit more empowered and knowledgeable about where things are going and where things are even right now, and maybe how you should approach it. So as the industry continues, and it will never stop, just evolving at a super fast pace, technology usually is going so much faster than any of our abilities to actually have a working knowledge of it. That's why we do what we do. We want to try to make some of those things more simplified so that, our dealers and our dealer friends can continue to just stay focused on what they are best at. So thanks for tuning in. The first thing that I really want to talk about with you guys in kind of this AI human interaction thing is just kind of help the audience understand the problem. And I guess that, Thomas, maybe I'll ask you first. Would you mind just kind of elaborating a bit on how this overly automated customer service sector has led to really customers being a lot more dissatisfied?
Yeah, for sure. So let's just talk about a little bit of the history really quickly. So for a long time in industry, we've understood that automations and efficiency make the business run better, but don't necessarily make people happier. And the best example from our past is probably IVR. And if you remember interactive voice response or those phone menus when you would call a long time ago, these were the very first times in a customer service aspect where we added an automation instead of a person to help you, as a customer, but I don't think many customers felt helped. It really was a time where people felt like they were being shunted off and not respected. Press 1 for, sales, 2 for blank. And I think one of the lessons we've learned there and we continue to learn is that when you replace a human with something technical, you've made it less human. And I think that's a fundamental of life. And I think at Strolid, we really understand and know that. And I think that's where we're making the same mistake again, in that we're very focused in on maybe what the bottom line needs, but we're not focusing in on what the customers need. And I think one of the things that I think is marks Strolid is we do a really good job at making sure that we understand we have a human business, and that human business needs humans.
Almost sounds like there's a little bit of a buried lead. Are you saying that happy customers, well cared for customers, actually have something to do with the bottom line of a business?
I think it's really clear that relationships are the core of any business.
Yeah.
Between us and our customers and their customers. So yeah, absolutely right. The more human it is, the more real it is. The more real it is, the better relationship all the way through.
Yeah. I think that's a great point.
Add to that. When I first got in the car business, there was no such thing as a CRM, for example. And we thought that this technology would would change our lives. And it did help, right? But it also created different jobs and different work, tedious, menial work, clicking buttons and tasks and all this other stuff to keep things in order, which human beings aren't great at. What human beings are great at is, and hopefully this stays this way forever, is building relationships with people, listening, empathizing, understanding the emotion of a purchase. And that's all stuff, in my opinion, that a robot can't do. To Thomas's point, IVRs have been, we have special ways at Strolid of setting up IVRs for dealers because they don't work very well. And a lot of them decided to, one of our comments to dealers is the best way to handle this is have a receptionist because she can understand that Joe is off today. And the system, someone has to actually go in and input that information into the system to know that Joe's not here today, and that customer's frantically looking for Joe and a system keeps putting them into his voicemail. Things like that just disrupt and there's thousands of those types of examples. And with CRM, it's the old saying, shit in, shit out, right? I hate to use that word, but everyone uses that when they talk about CRM data because the CRM data is not clean. And so it's hard to get a read on exactly what's happening. And you rely on these KPIs to run your business. And if you're not running things consistently, then that data isn't really giving you a true picture of what it is that you're trying to manage. And so there's a lot of examples of that. And just one last thing, there's also a lot of examples of different tech that keeps getting dumped on dealers, and we're very empathetic with our dealers. It started with CRM, and then it went to like SEO and SEM, and then it went to social media, and then it went to database management and data mining and things like that, and then it went to digital retailing, and then it went to so many different things are getting thrown at these dealers, and now all of a sudden it's AI, and we're hearing a lot of conversations from our dealers about, should I use AI? And it's like most of them don't know the difference between automations and AI. Neither did I until I met Thomas, who has educated me quite a bit over the last couple of years. But an automation can, cause problems just like an IVR can. And
you guys,
we think is AI is really just an automation.
Yeah. Good points you guys are sharing as we get just the wheels rolling on this thing. It makes me kind of leads me to some thoughts around, AI. I think most people that have done even just a little bit of research off the surface realize that artificial intelligence from a business purpose, it's capable of bringing a lot of efficiency into businesses. With what Strolid does, there's a lot of there's a necessity on the human side of it because you just mentioned the word empathy, right? The human side is what still understands the history of that business that you were kind of just talking about, Vinny, and how things have evolved. Question for you guys would be, so how are you guys working now in the AI world relative to your services to kind of address that balance of efficiency from artificial intelligence with empathy, which is clearly necessary for the type of work that you guys do?
Yeah. So I think there are two things here that I want to point at. The first thing I'm going to point at is although I kind of understood it, I think Mark Castleman, an old friend and who's in charge of Intel Ignite, gave Vinny and I some really good insight to AI and its use. And Mark told us, and I think this is absolutely true, that the biggest thing about AI is it makes people scalable in ways in which they weren't otherwise scalable. And so, like, just as an old school idea of that, I can't dig a cellar alone. I'm this one person, small shovel. But if I get a backhoe, I can dig a cellar. And the backhoe made me scalable. I can do things that I couldn't possibly do because it's bigger than I am, and right? It made me scalable. AI makes people scalable because it can look at a lot more than you can. Like, I can give a book to a ChatGPT and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, what did the book say?" And I couldn't read that book in 10 hours, but ChatGPT can do it in 10 minutes. And it makes me very, very scalable. And so that's the first fundamental I want to point out, which is AI makes you be able to really go through a lot more information a lot more quickly. And that's one thing. The other thing I want to talk about is empathy. And I think the biggest thing about empathy is it lets you, and emotions in general, is emotions tell you what's important. And so empathy allows you to understand what's important to your customer, important to your business. And that empathy, that understanding of what's important is really what the relationship is about. I know what's important to you. I can understand it. And so I'm going to, and that's important to me. And so that empathy allows me to make the best choices for our customers. And that's the other part. Empathy is a way of understanding what's important. But when I put these two ideas together, scalable and important, I think it really starts to understand how we use AI at Strolid. And that is by using AI to see all of our customer conversations and all of our interactions, we can see problems that impact our customers' lives. We can tell what's important because we can see a lot more things. And by us being able to see a lot more things, we're able to understand, okay, what are the really important things that are making our customers' lives harder, our dealers' lives harder? So we can apply empathy at scale. The AI allows us to see a lot more. Therefore, we can attend to what needs to be important, that empathy part. So instead of using AI to not worry about it, we use AI to look at a lot more things so we can worry about more things. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and things that would be otherwise not examined, right, and otherwise forgotten and lost. Thomas shared a stat with me, 10% of what happens in every business is actually written down. That means 90% of what happens in a business isn't written down. Well, AI can write it all down for you. You know, with our business, it was conversations. And for years, everybody was trying to buy call recording software and all that. And there's a lot of them. And they're all doing different things now and experiment with AI as well. And some of them are good and so forth. But so you only want, how many people we have 150,000 conversations coming through here a month. How can a human being read through all of that? Now AI can't.
Yeah. Was that
we also dump all of our dealers' inventory into our system. So we can look at all that. We get emails, we get texts, we get calls. And that's kind of what's unique about the software. I mean, the technology that we've developed has given us the ability to see all that.
Yeah, that's right.
Were those some of the things that inspired, or were there other things that inspired your decision to kind of work towards this integration with AI and humans? I mean, everybody that consumes this information and is interested in automotive BDC knows that people are and have been the biggest thing that powers that, right? You have to have them trained, right? But it's a very people centric, heavy business, and you guys are really at the front and center of all of that. Thought leadership galore, really kind of out of Strolid. What really was the inspiration to say, you know what, we can blend AI with what we're doing versus just completely replacing people? Because, all of us have probably heard things like that, even in recent years in our industry, where people like, we've got a thing and now you won't have to worry about people. You guys are taking a different approach. What inspired it?
So I think Vinny and I have a great story. So I came to Strolid about 3 years ago, and this is my first role in an automotive company. My career has been in network design and research. I'm a communications engineer, and I design phone systems and radars and crap like that. And when I met Vinny before I came to Strolid, and when we talked about joining, and we talked about what made Strolid special. What was the important part about Strolid? And it was just super clear. It was the people. It was the people we have and the people that our customers have and the conversations between them. And we knew that the things that were not, optional were our people, were a sales organization. And so the relationship was not something we couldn't change. And what was interesting about our story was we didn't start with AI. When I got here, Vinny was like, the most important thing we have are the conversations with our customers. And so I dove in and said, okay, that's a great idea. Let's dive into that and start exploring that idea. And what had happened just after a little bit of time looking at the problem was we had understood that the conversations that we had with our customers were all the real insight about what was the customer need, how the business was running, just the amount of data that was available to us to understand things was incredible. And that's when we started running into, hey, you know what? This would be a really good thing to feed to a robot. That's when we started calling it robot food. If we could give this to a robot and say, hey, robot, what does this mean? We could do these, we can understand at scale instead of understanding, just one by one. And so our decision to integrate AI with human agents actually was the human agents weren't optional.
Mm-hmm.
And so the AI for us was a way for us to help our customers, help our agents do a better job. And so the AI was more optional. The conversations and the customers were not optional.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And if you look at like a script, Sean, we've talked about this in past episodes, where there are people out there, I see people posting, you don't want your people to be scripted. Well, the reason for scripts isn't to tell them what to say. It's to give them a guideline, a framework, an outline of how a call should go. But listening to hundreds of thousands of calls probably at this point in my career, they don't always go, right? So what do we need to train our people on, and what are we training our people on at Strolid? We start with customer service and empathy. A human being can't possibly know what the wheelbase is on a Toyota Camry or a Toyota Tundra, like on every single model. And if you do, you're spending way too much time studying all the specs, and all that stuff can get put in a brochure or online on a magazine and things like that. What I want to hear from my people is a genuine interest in the customer and their willingness to help that customer with whatever challenges that they have. And now we can focus on that as more with AI. And so we pick up sentiment. And I'm proud to say 95% of the calls that I see in our sentiment channel say that our agents were helpful in trying to help the customer. Maybe even 98%. I mean, it's very rare that we have somebody that the customer is frustrated with. A lot of times the customer is frustrated with things like, well, your price is wrong on the website compared to what it is on this other website, or, that doesn't have photos, or it's not available. We have to break the news to them, things like that. So, and the dealer is going to get to see that work with us. But at the end of the day, the sentiment is really what I've always been after in terms of it's the core of what the future holds for human beings. If you lack that ability to communicate with people and customers, the AI can pick up on menial tasks and all the buttons and all the tedious work. What it can't pick up on is that human to human interaction. I mean, at least if it does, it's scary, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, just, listening to you guys share makes me almost think of my own journey on the digital side of this industry. I mean, I got into it when it was barely a stream, not a raging river. So from the digital side, my first entry point was 1999. You mentioned it, Vinny, and I was there too when the first CRM kind of hits the market or our vertical. I understood, like, okay, this is important because we had a new digital customer, a new internet customer. But fast forward to where we are today, or even fast forward to where, Vinny, when you were like, hey, I built this company, I'm doing my own thing now. What Strolid is doing is so connected to the communication, right? It is the communication back and forth between the dealership and the customer. And there's a lot of different ways. I mean, we have buzzwords like omni-channel because there are so many different opportunities or communication channels to where you could find your way into a dealership. But what's fascinating to me, and I think really, really smart, astute on your part, is that artificial intelligence for a while, but now it is at a level where you can greatly, like dramatically improve what is going on within these communication dynamics and nuances to be able to not just summarize what's being talked about, but as you guys are talking about identifying sentiment. And I don't want to, let any lightning out of bottles as we work through this episode. But from my perspective of knowing the industry and knowing the challenge that dealers have had getting their arms around technology when it's like, can you simplify how we land a customer, schedule an appointment with them, and then let us work through the process of selling them a vehicle, selling them service. You guys are now at a point where you can help the dealership by simplifying all of that, but it also is going to provide a better experience for their customers, which is great. It's an interesting piece that I think that dealers really need to kind of focus in on. That bottleneck that happens in the communication, and Vinny, both of you have probably heard me say this before. There are probably more dealers that don't have marketing problems, although they keep saying, well, I need another lead provider, or I need a better paid search provider, or I need a better SEO provider. And the reality is, no, they just need better processes. And what you guys literally have already been working on, but now as you go into this, combination of efficiency, empathy, humans, AI, you guys are going to blow, you're already starting to, but you're going to blow the doors off of that. And if I'm a dealer, I'm like, how can I not be listening to what you guys are doing? So that kind of leads me into kind of the next area where I want to talk about, like, where you guys see the collaboration of people, humans, and AI working together. Kind of what are you guys already in that channel where there are some ways that you guys are starting? And could you share on some of that, maybe specific to how it will enhance the experience for the dealership's customers, or their experiences, at least with the dealership?
Yeah. Let me take that one first. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest change, the biggest thing that we're doing in that area, and it's sort of shocking that it's so simple yet it's so important and rare, is what we're understanding is that if you want to have a relationship with somebody in general, you'll simply remember what they said last time. And so by having the conversations that we have with our customers and having them at our disposal, the next time we talk to customers, the next time we interact with customers, we haven't forgotten what they said. And so in the short term, it might be we were talking to a customer and we made them a promise. And so we can keep track of the promises so we know we did it. But it's also, the next time, the third or fourth time we talk with a customer, we might remember what they said the first, second, and third time. The shorthand we have in our engineering department is, imagine going on a third date with a girl, but not having any idea of what you said on the first two dates. Now that's awkward. And isn't calling a company after you've emailed them or texted them or talked to them last month and them having no idea what you said the last time, isn't that roughly equivalent? Haven't you been forgotten as a person if they don't remember what they said to you last time? And I think we take these things as being as a granted, but let me remind you what Vinny said earlier in this podcast. Only 10% of what happens in a business is written down. 90% is not. So how could you possibly have remembered what they said last time? They may not have talked to you, or maybe they didn't put the notes in right. There's all kinds of reasons why you couldn't remember. Mm-hmm. AI allows us to really have a long-term memory about what people said to us and what they care about, what we promised them, and what happened. And that is fundamentally supportive of a relationship.
Yeah, let me go back to what I said about scripting, right? What is the problem with scripting? It's not personalized to that customer. And that's what a lot of people have a problem with. They think it's canned. And so I've always defended it and said, well, no, you can add your own personality, and you can be happy, and you can make jokes, and you can joke around with the customer, make them feel comfortable, make them feel, warm and fuzzy. What this allows us to do, especially into the future, as we get more and more of our data into the conserver vCons, is personalize these conversations with the script in mind. So we have the structure. Now, how do we personalize and say, hey, Sean, looks like you called us last week, and you weren't able to come in. Were you able to come in this week? And that, to me, is the ultimate in combining a structured process and script with a personalization of the conversation. Now you have to, hope you hire the right people that have empathy, right? Because unfortunately, not everybody does. And we do an incredible job at recruiting, training. Sometimes we have to go through hundreds of people before we hire somebody here. Because we want to make sure that they're people, they're people friendly first. They're people.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are great points for our audience. I mean, I just listening, I'm thinking not only is that instant on-demand recall of the conversation that you were talking about, Thomas, like super critical. But, and again, I'm not going to get the cart before the horse, but I also know that you guys have mentioned a little bit on the sentiment. How awesome, just for anybody listening that's on the dealer side, on the retail side, how awesome to think, okay, can we simplify and make it easier to have complete, immediate, on-demand recall of what we last said, not just what you ever said with them. Because it's one thing to know, hey, they did some business with us and we know when their birthday is or their wedding anniversary or whatever. A lot of this important, but often not well utilized information that gets collected on customers. Yeah. But the last thing that they said with you could have been completely lost in the sauce, right? But not only can you guys have that available, the sentiment, right? So I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, he used the sentence, I did not say that he hit his wife. And he said, it's kind of not just what you're saying, but how you say it. And sentiment analysis inside of the business that you guys offer dealers is massively important, because just that sentence that I was giving as the example of Zig Ziglar, I did not say that he hit his wife. Just the voice inflection, word by word, I did not say that he hit his wife, right? When you break down the complexity of, sentiment, we've wanted that through social media for many years, and then Hootsuite and some others started to play around with that, but it is at a different level now. So it's cool to hear that you guys are incorporating that into how you guys are collaborating these two worlds. I think it's important.
Can I just mention one thing before you, Thomas, on that? I want to just make sure I'm clear on what I was saying. A lot of dealers are probably sitting there thinking, well, I got a CRM that captures all this information. However, we have CRMs too, and it doesn't capture all the information. I can promise you that, number one. Number two, our ability to feed Thomas's tech that he developed, the vCon, or Strolid's tech, I should say too, but feed that information directly to our agents when they're taking a phone call or making a phone call, having it right at their fingertips, is called what we're calling now Copilot for our agents. Like they have someone next to them feeding them, and that would be the AI, right? Feeding them the information. And that's something that's very clunky within a CRM, because you got to go keep scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down, looking for all the conversations and a lot of left messages and all that kind of stuff. And we can hone in on what's actually being said and what the customer wants, what promises and commitments we've made, right? Sentiment, maybe last time they spoke to us, actually spoke to us, not just voicemails and emails that went back and forth that never had any engagement. And we can really get a good picture of what, that conversation was all about prior to taking that call or text or email.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And the other thing just to point out too is one of the things that makes us really unique is that we now have integrations with all CRMs, DMSs, phone systems, chat systems, obviously leads, in and outbound email and text replies. So a lot of systems out there that are doing, reviews of calls and transcriptions, they're only doing it through one channel of communication. And what we know at Strolid is customers communicate in multiple channels. So we're able to now plug all those channels into the conserver and see. And because they're all captured in a vCon in one place, we can see all that data from that one customer and then feed it to, the systems. It's really complex, but it's actually, it's exciting. I'm excited that we're in front of all of this at the moment. We're not experts yet. We have a ways to go, but
yeah, you're definitely logging more miles on the road, at least in this specific part of the vertical, than anybody else I know, which is, I think, really great. A little bit of a piggyback there on some of the CRM related information that you were sharing, Vinny. And this is just a question for either or both of you. Because my understanding has been at an automotive CRM that all the attempts at artificial intelligence, at least up until now, and I don't know what any or all of them are doing right now, but I know that there have been a lot of there's been a lot of effort around. Well, and I think some of them call it AI, but there's always been this desire to have a heavy list of automation rules. As much sophistication as you can put within automation, which is not artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And we've talked, Vinny, you and I, we did a whole episode on kind of automation versus AI. But the traditional automotive CRMs have played around with some of that and still do have all kinds of different automated rules that you can set up. But are any of them, to your knowledge, are they doing these things around the AI side? Because, Vinny, you said it. Like dealers might say, well, I have a CRM. It does all these things. But not really. It does some things, but there's a big
one
difference.
Example, and then I'll let Thomas answer the rest of this.
Okay.
One example is we take a call, Sean, right?
Yeah.
And we're done with the call. Our system will allow our agents to take that conversation, or our system will take that conversation, transcribe it, summarize it, and put it into the CRM. So the dealer can read the conversation in the CRM. Because and every dealer will understand this. Right now, you have to rely on someone to type that information in, and you're going to miss information in those notes, or they're going to be too brief, or maybe too long. Like these are very concise summarizations that you can read, and then you'll also be able to not just read it, click on it, and go listen to the call if you want to, which is really exciting.
Will it also assign? And will it also assign any, like if there are action related items that belong to either the customer or the dealership, like, hey, you also need to do these? Because that's always a big thing for the dealers is, oh, I was supposed to do this, but we wrote down 10% and not 90%. Like lots of businesses do that. So, yeah.
I think for me, and this is me coming into the automotive market, I'd say what we're seeing around today's CRMs and the automations or AI that it seems really parallels what we've seen in the technology market time and time again. And I'll just use email for a second. So when we were coming up, email was something that you could get from AOL, and you could send email to other people in AOL. But there was a time where you couldn't. All you could do is AOL. As the internet became more pervasive, you were able to send emails not only in your own team and company, but between companies, right? And that was a big deal. And the same sort of thing happened in the transportation market with container transport. That in the 40s and 50s, we had trucks. And the trucks were just their own little truck, and you can move the truck around, but you couldn't take the top of the truck and put it on the train and put that and that couldn't get to the coast, and you couldn't put that container onto a ship, and it couldn't go across the ocean. It wasn't interoperable. Every little thing was its own little island, own little silo, own little stuff to do. And the thing that I really see, which is different in the automotive market in terms of AI and automations, and how is this different and what's going on, is this is a much more open, connected networking experience. So for instance, something that we're able to do at Strolid and is common now in AI, but not necessarily automotive, is that if I wanted to summarize a conversation, with AI and a modern view of it, I could pick any engine to do it. I could pick Google, I could pick OpenAI, I could pick my own to do it. And I could send it to them saying, please summarize it and give it back to me. It allows me to leverage what's happening in those industries without having to do it myself. And that living in the ecosystem of AI is something which is very unique to us. Using AI for your own little world is kind of the standard right now in automotive. It's not necessarily how do I interoperate my automotive technology with everything else in AI. And that's really, really what we're working on here.
Yeah, I love it. I know this because of conversations outside of the podcast that you guys are working on a lot of stuff, some of which we'll talk about today. Are you guys okay with talking about the dialer So using an AI-based dialer I'd love to know a little bit more. I think the audience would love to know, like, what is that? How does that dialer prepare, your reps, your agents for calls? What kind of information does it provide? Share a little bit of that. I think the audience would love to hear about that.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of passion for it. We're in the design right now, so this is something our engineering team is working on, and we're working hard on it, and it's great. So the dialer that we have, if you just step back for a second, we're a BDC. We make a lot of calls, inbound, outbound, or people sit in front of phones and do work. So just imagine the case where we have an inbound call. Someone's calling us, and we had no opportunity to prepare for who that person was. We don't know. The phone starts ringing. So what we do at the dialer is, when the call starts or previous to the call, we take all the conversations we've had with that customer in the past. We take the information from the lead, if it was around a lead. We take the information from the dealership, if it was around the dealership, and we basically give it to ChatGPT or some sort of generative AI, and we say, okay, we're about to have this conversation. What do we need to know? I want to know who this person is, what we promised them. Is there anything that happened last time? Are there any specials at the store? Are they calling about a car that's not there? Is there something I need to know about that car? All of those things can be done really almost instantaneously by a robot if they had the information. So the first part of our work is, now that we have the information, can we arrange it, give it to the robot and say, I'm about to have the conversation, help me. And that's the first part. And the second part around the dialer, which is also very exciting, is instead of thinking of it in just like Strolid's terms, like our dialer, the information that the robots give us back, we can then put in the dialer, of course. We can also put it in other places in the system. So it's not very connected to the dialer. We could have had it on our mobile phone, on our Slack app. We can put that information into a CRM. We can put that information someplace different. And that's a great example of us working in the ecosystem, not just for ourselves. So that IQ about what I need to know to make a great conversation with the customer, I can then express not only into our own systems, but our dealers' systems as well.
Just having, since COVID, lots has changed. We've had a lot of that. We've had to adapt quite a bit, and the dealers had to adapt quite a bit, and inventory changes and remote work and, all this kind of crazy stuff that we've been exposed to that we didn't 4 years ago, if you can believe that. Everything was going pretty smooth. And then all of a sudden, boom. Our agents now have to have rules that they didn't have before. I mean, prior to all this, it was schedule an appointment. I believe that car is available. When would you like to drive it? And now it's like, oh, don't schedule on this car because we won't have it for 8 months, and all this other kind of stuff, and all those rules and all that information is now being fed to our agents when someone calls for one of our dealers, to include things like how to pronounce the dealer's name. All right. I know that's not funny, but Poughkeepsie isn't easy to pronounce.
No.
We have a dealer that wants us to pronounce his name differently than what you would have, typically imagined. So, and then because people in that market know it that way. So it's like, if you don't, so just all kinds of crazy rules. Like, no one ever thinks about all this stuff. And the reason they don't think about it is because there's too much to think about. So AI can, the
scalability part of AI.
Scalability part of it, yeah. It's amazing.
Right, exactly. Hey, yeah, if you're from Rhode Island and someone calls it Pawtucket, they're not from Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's funny. The Northeast and the Northwest have some fun city and town names, right? Like, being a Northwest guy, when people are like, have you ever been to Quinault or Quinalte? Oh, Quinault, yeah, or Puyallup or Humptulip. Right. It's like,
so if you ever find yourself in the little state of Rhode Island, we call it Pawtucket. There's a spit.
Pawtucket. There you go, audience. Remember, if you're in Rhode
Island, you'll be able to be a native.
There's a ton of them in Massachusetts. Haverhill is Haverhill. Peabody is Peabody.
Worcester.
Worcester or Worcester. Like, it's just, you would never. you couldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
But it matters. It matters to the community. It matters to the relationship. I'm in town. I'm actually someone who's, connected to your community. And that's important. That's an important part because buying a car is a local
So not only is it important, but it's there's so much detail to improve on that experience for the customer and that personalization that it's really hard to train all that. Even if you have, people internally that, not using an outsourced BDC, there's just too much little detail that goes, I always used to say with the car business, like you survive in the car business if you're a survivor. If you're able to deal with lots and lots of adversity and be able to handle it and overcome it. And I would say, a majority of the people in the world, they get frustrated in businesses like the car business because there's no consistency. There's no like simple route to doing the job. And, you got to learn on the fly and all that. And so AI helps with a lot of that.
They're natural entrepreneurs, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the car business. I mean, it's a pillar of the economy, certainly in this country, and that puts a lot of pressure on those business leaders, right? To constantly be like innovating, staying on the bleeding edge, and sometimes you shed more. It's just
what this geek learned was before I came into the car business, I didn't know exactly who in this town would be the entrepreneur. Now I know they're probably running a car store. It's wonderful. It's great. It's great. It's great stuff.
Yeah, and
it's not a
high margin business. They got 5 businesses they're running under one rooftop, or 4 or 5. And you're right. And I had a respect for that for a long time, and it's hard, right? So one of their taglines, Sean, is how do we Strolid's here to make your life easier.
Right.
Strong process, solid results, baby. I love that tagline.
Very Strolid, yes.
Sean came up with that tagline. That's why he loved it. This is a good segue, though, right? Where we're at is for my next question for you guys. So what elements of customer service are you guys seeing that are most positively impacted by this human AI synergy?
So from my perspective, and I'll let Benny fill in. I think the customer rescue. I think just the attuning yourself to the emotions and needs and wants of the customer are really the big things, because that really I think makes the difference in our rates, our closing rates, our ability to help people get what they need. Is the fact that we're now really attuned to their anxieties, to their anger, to their excitement, to their, we see it all. And just seeing people as emotional people instead of just people, I think is a huge thing.
You can get in sync with them substantially faster than before.
You don't trust people who feel differently than you. It's just a fundamental of the world. If you're really happy, you're really angry, and the person next to you is really happy, you're like, what's wrong with you? What? Right. Right? I'm really afraid, but you're not. What's going on? We're very much in tune with people who understand and share our emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would add to that. So it's 100% true. My whole career has been built around, since the dawn of the internet, how do we bridge the gap between the customer online and at home to the dealer in a way, in a required process, right? So strong process, solid results. And so we pull that off, and we are working hard to improve and enhance the customer experience. But we're also able now to provide the dealer with a lot of insights into what's actually happening in their business that they don't know. Yes. They can't listen to every single phone call, or they're relying on one person. So if we're just showing them just upset customers, and let me just use an example, like the same problem keeps coming up 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row that maybe they wouldn't have seen without having a sentiment channel. Or, we're doing inventory analysis with this based on the demand on the calls and leads we get. How many calls and leads are coming in for specific vehicles? Back in 2008, when we had the crash and gas prices went to $5 a gallon, I used to tell third-party leads providers, don't give me any Prius leads. I don't need them. But, dealer will look at, I got 500 leads. how come we only scheduled 100 appointments? Well, 150 of them were for Prius, and you don't have any, as an example. Mm-hmm. And so that data is in there to be able to tell our dealers, hey, we want to help consult with you too, not just be, that customer-facing company that helps you with the customer experience. We also want to share data with you to help you run your business, because we know, Thomas just said it, they're entrepreneurs. Their job is hard. We're trying to provide them with a level of support that they can go, wow, this company is really, really helping me run my operation. And that's what I've always tried to do. And it was hard to do with the limited technology when I worked for that big dealer group I used to work for, because they wouldn't invest in technology. But I knew the data was always there. So when Thomas and I had that conversation when he came, it was, yes, all that information is in the conversation to not only help the dealer, but to help the customer.
100%.
Yeah. Have you guys come across challenges as you've been encountering this, really embarking on this integration of AI and the human side of things? Are there challenges that have come up? Are you working through any of them? Anything that you could share there?
Yeah, I could. So I'm proud of Strolid. I'm proud of how we do business. I'm proud of our customers. And I'm proud of my engineering department. We're doing a great job. But the biggest challenge that we had to surmount, I think, might be hidden from a lot, but it's what I'm most proud of. So what we're working on, and as I said at the beginning, I'm a network researcher. Part of my research is on how we take human conversations and give them to AI, which is inherently a dangerous process. It's inherently dangerous, and there's all kinds of concern, and rightly so, of the interaction between AI and people. Are the robots going to take over, et cetera? And so that particular challenge has been the thing that we've worked on the hardest at Strolid. And so one of the things you may or may not know about Strolid is we are the authors of a upcoming internet standard. If you've heard of RFCs, those are the things that determine how the internet works. And if you've ever used email or the web or a domain name, all those things are internet standards. And the internet standard that we developed was to protect and control the information that you give to AI. And so the biggest challenge that we've addressed is how do we, in a compliant, legally compliant way, take these customer conversations and then analyze them in a way in which is safe and, again, compliant to the local laws. And so that is what we've worked on the hardest. And that name of the standard is called the vCon. It stands for virtual conversation, and it addresses things like deepfakes. It addresses things like customer privacy and data minimization and redaction. All of those things are the things that we had to surmount at Strolid so that we could use AI in a way in which was ethical and safe.
Yeah, and I would, for the dealers that are listening, I would say, listen to this podcast, I would say that sounds really, geeky and high tech, and maybe I try to simplify it because Thomas has been talking to me about this for 3 years, and it took me a little while to really understand the importance of data security, and now we're seeing it in automotive. But the GDPR in Europe is, if a customer over in Europe calls and says, I want you to destroy all my data, the company has to. And unfortunately, your data isn't just sitting in one place anymore. The vCon gives it the option to have it all in one place. So it's easy to find and get rid of. That's just one big thing that's bigger in probably different verticals than it is in automotive at the moment. But automotive dealers, I think, are very sensitive to all this new privacy stuff. So I wanted to point that out. The reason we came up with this is because we have a patent on another product that we came up with first, and then Thomas realized that won't work unless there's the standard for conversational data. So Strolid, helped fund it and support Thomas throughout all of it, going to all these meetings in Europe and San Francisco and Philly and all that, and now it's going to become a standard, which I know kind of sounds crazy coming from our little company, but it's pretty exciting. And that vCon became, okay, now we need a place to store it. So Thomas, in our unbelievable engineering team, created the conserver to store it. And now we have all the data in one place. Then we had to get the API integrations with all the CRMs. We got that in place. We have the phone system connected into it. And now we're able to pump that into transcription model software and sentiment software, and then get all this data to come out into channels. Now we have all the data in one place, and that's really the key to reporting, right? Anyone who runs a report and says, "Oh, this report doesn't look right," it's because it's bad data. But you know what? This hit me like a year and a half ago, Sean. Our data isn't bad. It's real. It's what happened. You can't mess with it.
That's right.
You can't say it didn't happen. We're not relying on a person to type it in.
That's right.
Now, eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to get to the point where we don't need a person to actually press a button and click and wait for a task to come. It'll tell us when to call the customer.
Yeah.
Based on the conversation, which is really, really, I know I'm going far out there, but you have to have all the data in one place first. And then it's going to be, I think, pretty game changing and amazing what this is going to do for our business.
Okay, so you guys you littered the soil with amazing seeds here. So I want to dig in a little bit with this because audience wise, this vCon, this is huge. Now I get this because I've been in this industry and I've been on the technical side, the internet side of it for a long time. The Graham Leach Bliley, ringless voicemail was so cool, but it also had infringement upon things. Dealers paid big fines. I won't name dealer groups, but all of us would probably have recall of some dealers that have paid huge fines because of things that were not handled properly. There was no internet standard for them. So I know for some on the retail side, it's like, this is kind of technical geeky, but this is technical geeky on your behalf to take complex regulation, complex rules, the way that you have to handle information and making it easier, simplifying it for you in a way that's embedded in what I believe is probably one of the most important parts of the dealer business, and that is how you're communicating with the customers. By way of sentiment, of course, important, collecting, having immediate on-demand recall of that. But now what you're talking about, internet standards, this is huge for you guys. It's really, really big. No one's talking about this kind of thing. So I want to unpack that a little bit and probably even force you guys to be a bit redundant, because I think in an episode like this, I can already tell you, I'm going to want to have you guys talk about this on upcoming episodes so we can unpack more. But during this episode, I just want to go back again and have you guys kind of help us understand, help the audience understand. And vCon technology as an internet standard, this virtual conversation, this is going to play a big role, right, in how you guys enhance the way that customers are communicating. Just take me through that again on just how do you guys see it playing that role relative to that customer communication piece?
Vinny?
The thought I had, Sean, when you were asking that question, I'm sorry, I was on mute, was this. We started our customer lifecycle. Thomas loved it because it was all the conversations, not just the BDC conversations.
Yep.
And I loved it because that's what a BDC was supposed to be in the first place, is communicating and driving business into the dealership, whether it be from fresh leads or past customers, and re-engaging at the right times and all that kind of stuff. But I used to say it all starts with a lead. It really all starts with your marketing or your past experience with the customer. That cycle, where do you enter and exit that cycle, is really, really an interesting thought, right? We could discuss that a long time. But let's just say it starts with a lead. That lead now isn't just a walk-in customer like it was 30 years ago, or a phone up. They're sending in lead forms, they're chatting, they're texting, and we're able to capture all of that information now in a vCon. So most people know that a customer sends in a lead, we call it, we text it, we email it. Maybe they text us back. We have a couple text conversations. They say, you know what, can we talk? And then we get on a phone and we talk. All that is really, really important information leading up to the sale. And I'm like inherently a sales guy. You know, my dad's a great salesperson. I think some of it rubbed off. He's much better than I am. But to me, I always wanted to know all that information. I used to have a saying like 20 years ago. I wish a customer would walk into the showroom and give me a manual and say, this is how you sell me a car.
Yeah.
But back then you had to like kind of figure it all out and understand the customer and ask questions and listen and all that. And before you could kind of put it all together, and all that information that you're gathering throughout that whole process is critical to actually giving the customer the experience they deserve and need. And you can't do that if the BDC is handling it and the customer comes in, no one's looking at that information. And so that's where the strong process comes in. But it starts with a lead is really. So what's in that lead is hopefully conversation. There's a lot of leads, by the way, that we have no conversations with that dealers should know about.
Yeah.
That we try and call, we try to email, we try to text. So the ones we do have conversations on, I think every dealer should be paying attention to those.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be oversimplifying to say that the vCon is going to be a connector between the actions of the humans and the ability for AI to analyze and log and
no, that's exactly it.
Okay.
In fact, let me just give you another way of thinking about vCons and maybe something that you already do today. So today, you know what a Word file is. We all use them, right? And so the Word file allows you to, create a document, save it, bring it back, and send it. Right. So it allows you to that wasn't always true, by the way. The first word processors were big machines made by Wang Corporation, and they were like this, they sold to lawyer companies, and once you wrote your legal brief, you didn't send it anywhere. And that's what Microsoft Word did, was enable that. So the vCon is often called a PDF for conversations. It's a file format. Here's my conversation. I can use it. And that enables that exact sharing. So for instance, I can take a conversation and give it to a chatbot and say, please write me a thank you letter based on this conversation. And that interaction allows us to leverage the AI ecosystem in a way in which doesn't depend upon anyone else to do that. So just imagine how much, getting back to the Word thing for a second, when Google Docs made their system, they didn't have to spend any time trying to figure out how people should put their own documents in it. Just upload your Word document. It was already there. In the same way, the vCon will enable a company to say, I can do a marketing segmentation of your customers. Just give me your conversations. And I've eliminated focus groups. I've eliminated all that expense simply by taking all your conversations and say, I can now tell you what your customers are and what they care about because I have the conversations. And it's the vCon that allows me to take that and give it to a company that has that functionality without having to do it myself.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. Okay, I got another question because you guys mentioned a few minutes back a conserver. I'd never heard of a conserver. So tell the audience a little bit about the conserver, how that system works in conjunction with the vCon tech.
Yeah. So the conserver is it's an application. It's a framework. It's a lot like a database for conversations. And so just like you have a database for all the other data in your life, a conserver is a database for the conversations you had. And you might ask, okay, why do you need a different kind of database? Won't my database work? And the answer for that is human conversations are a special form of data. They tend to be very difficult to work with. They can be very large. They're saved in analog form, not digital form. And so to be able to work with the video and audio requires a different level of technology than working with just text. So that's one of the reasons why it has to be a separate thing. And so the conserver's job is simply to attach to all of our phone systems, all of our email systems, and then to create vCons from it every time a conversation happens. And then we take those conversations and then we either redact them, manage them, tag them, summarize them, transcribe them. And then finally, the last step is we put them into existing data sources so we can use them with our existing tools. So like all the things that we use to manage our conversations aren't specialized pieces of software. They're normal pieces of software. So when we want to bring a conversation to one of our agents, we use Slack. Slack had nothing to do with the conversation, but it's there. We can leverage Slack without having to call Slack up and say, hey, support vCons. They don't have to do that. They already did it.
Yeah, and Slack's interesting. Thomas mentioned to me a couple of years ago that we were going to, our agents, he envisioned that our agents would just work out of Slack. And I'm thinking, well, we got to be in the CRMs, and I don't know how he's going to do that, but I get excited. I've always gotten excited at new ideas that push the limits to what I think is possible. And I hate being around people who tell me things aren't possible. That's one of the great things about my relationship with Tom is he tells me things are possible, and I'm like, yes, let's go figure it out. Because one of the challenges with our business is, there's a lot of BDCs out there that work outside of the dealer CRM, and I'm thinking, well, I was a GM of a store before. I wouldn't want that. I want it in front of me where I can see it. And so we're now integrated with all these CRMs, and Slack gives our people the ability eventually that when that follow-up call needs to be done, it can go right to their Slack channel and then feed right into the CRM. And they can work out of one interface instead of others. And Slack is a great communication channel. We have it on our service side for all our service dealers. We still have our sales. We don't have our sales dealers on it yet, but we have sentiment channels built in there. We have all kinds of great communications coming in and out, and it's all organized. And I have too many Slack channels, but I'm, obviously, I think there's a lot I don't need to be in.
Yeah, maybe you should give it to your bot and tell you. Yeah, it needs scalability.
We also have a TO channel that I forgot to mention. We have a reply channel. So it's a TO channel and a reply channel. Our TO channel is when a customer gets to the point where we can't answer their questions, and we send it over to the dealer. That we can examine all of those, because those are really hot customers, in my opinion. They want to buy something. They want more info. And then we have the reply channel, which is back and forth communication via email and text. That's all being fed into the conserver or into the vCon, which goes to the conserver, which goes to Slack, which goes to...
A little trivia. Conserver is the French verb to keep.
I thought it just meant conversational server, Thomas.
It does mean that too, but
Vinny, you just mentioned something I think is really critical and really important is, I think for dealers who are trying to figure out, hey, is a Strolid right? Is that a right service for us? I think a big point of concern, I know because I've talked to dealers about this, where, well, how could I trust that there'd be a communication channel to where when they really need us, right? They get nervous that, well, can we really outsource this part of the business? And you just, I don't want to bury really important leads. You not only have a process for that, you have now and are building and expanding upon technology to ensure that isn't a point of concern for a dealer. Because for years that would be a point of concern for a dealer. I don't know if I can do that. And what you're basically saying is we already have solved that, and we continue to evolve, making that a point where we don't ever want the dealer to worry about, do we have a way to be in contact with you immediately, because you're the only one that's going to be able to answer the question.
People will really understand what you're saying. The car people will really understand what you're saying, and it's why we built what we built. Are we lying to you if I told you every single one of our dealers responds back to us quickly? But the ones that kick butt, they're like, got it. Here's the info, quick back, and we're getting back to the customer rapidly. And it's like a great exchange. And it's Josh and Josh's team's job to make sure, because I'm a hawk on the TO channel. I go in there all the time. And if there's stuff sitting for an hour or two that we send to the dealer, and I'm like, pick up the phone and call them. Mm-hmm. That customer's waiting. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's all really important parts of the technology that you're right. We built that without the vCon conserver in mind, but it's now going to take that to the next level.
That's right.
Because in reality, at the dealer level, if if you've communicated and you need us and it's like urgent, right? It's the bat phone. It's the, it's the urgent communication channel. And the dealership wanted that. That was a point of concern. And so that's being fulfilled, but they're the ones on their side. What dealer principal or what general manager who that was a point of concern brings you in, and then they're not doing their side, they're going to crack the whip and fix that process on their side really quick because they want to. They wouldn't even have the visibility that maybe their side might be broken or not imperfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I want to jump in on, because, what we've also come to understand is by looking at all these conversations and reading them and understanding them, oh my God, there's so much more that you're not seeing in your business. There's just so much to see that you never had a chance to see. And I would suspect that there would be a time where dealers would say, I just can't afford not to see that. And just as much as they're afraid to not be able to get in communication with us, I'm telling you, there's a lot of communication that you guys are missing. It is insane. And I think at some point, given the sensitivity of the data, because this, the customer conversations are really, and given the amount of insight and visibility and observability it gives to your business, you just are going to have to be driven into two things. One is that you're either going to listen to your customers and pay attention, or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to know which one you are.
Right.
It's really obvious.
Yeah. Information overload locks people up, locks businesses up, locks business leaders up, where they're all of a sudden paralyzed and decisions aren't being made and they don't know what to do because there's too much information. You guys are basically...
It's not only too much information, Sean, it's the trust of the information. And that's why I like what we're doing is it's real information. It's what actually happened on the conversation. It's not made up. Yeah. It's not some...
Well, the conversations and all the communication creates so much information, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys are literally making... the next thing I wanted to ask about is, because I'm guessing that transcription around all of this conversational data is part of what you're doing. And I'm guessing that can be in multiple formats. You guys, essentially, you can boil it down to, as things get more complex, this very vital part of a dealer's business, you guys are simplifying, you are making it secure, you are building things that will also protect them with all the sensitivity of this type of information. I mean, these are huge things, but tell me a little bit about what is going on around the transcription of all that, different formats relative to kind of vCons.
Let me just touch on the trust of the data really quick, though, because I've been around CRM a long time, and pay plans are poison. And some managers and general sales managers manage to a KPI, and their people know it. So their people fight to get there and sometimes cheat to get there. I hate to say it. Logging phone ups is a problem in car dealerships. 20% of car dealerships log phone ups. We probably log 90%, but we're not perfect. Some people just won't give you their information on a phone call to log it, but the vCon logs it.
Right.
It happened. Whether you want to say it or not, the lead came in, it happened. The email went out or it didn't go out. The email came in or it didn't come in. And that's what I love about it, because that I can trust it now and I can make real decisions, not gut decisions. Nothing frustrates me more when one of my managers or directors or VPs even say to me, I believe, I think, I feel. I'm like, guys, we have all this data. You don't need to think anymore. You don't need to believe. You need to feel. Like those never turn out right when you're feeling or thinking or believing in what you think is going to happen. Like digital retailing, everyone thought it was going to change the game and everyone was going to buy cars online. It didn't. And I know that there are dealer groups out there that are fudging those numbers for Wall Street, for example, and saying 15 to 30% of our cars are being bought digitally. Not happening. It's not.
Corporations don't fudge numbers for Wall Street, do they?
Just saying, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. I'm just saying that the reality of it is, do you really want to know what's happening, or do you want to pretend what's happening?
Yeah.
And we've always been real about what we do. We can't possibly fake numbers. We get caught. Man, our business is junk. Our reputation is shot. And sometimes
Right.
we're up against bad numbers. We'll go into a dealer that they got these great numbers, and we come in and we show them real numbers, and they're like, "Oh, my old guys were doing it better." It's like, "Oh, really?"
Maybe they weren't.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah. And to jump in on the transcription stuff, because I think that's a really important point, and I touched on it before. I want to say it again. The thing that I think is really interesting about the approach that we're taking is as an open thing in an open network. And it makes a difference here. When we program the conserver to make vCons, we can choose which transcription engine we use. It's part of what we're able to do with the vCon. We can say, we like to use OpenAIs, or we like to use DeepGrams, or we can choose which engine you want. And that's actually on every single kind of functionality. I could choose that guy's sentiment engine. I can use that guy's text-to-speech engine. I can use that guy's transcription. And the ability to pick and choose the functionality that you apply to a vCon then makes you make that vCon way more valuable. So instead of just living in our system and living in Strolid, once the vCon is created, you can give it to any AI and have it do stuff and stuff we hadn't even thought of yet. Please make me a video of this conversation. And it's something that could be done.
Yeah.
And then make it as a training video.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head gets all messed up with all this. There's so many ideas. Like, what do you do first? That's why I'm not afraid of it. I don't think it's going to take jobs, because someone has to give it the ideas, and someone has to feed it the ideas, and someone has to, deal with the ups and downs of whether it worked or not, and all that kind of stuff. So our real innovation at Strolid wasn't in making new robots, but feeding robots the right kind of food. And the food was the conversations that we generate. That is really, at the end of the day, the thing that we did that was kind of unique in the world. Like, we decided that was really great food for the robots, and we found a way of doing it. Yeah, and we're kind of glad we didn't build robots, because now they're becoming cheap and free. ChatGPT recently just came out with, you can build your own virtual receptionist to answer a phone call for you and make appointments and all this other stuff, or chatbots and stuff like that. And there are companies out there that have a lot of money riding in their robot. And it's like, okay, you're going to compete with these big, giant companies? Good luck with that. And I'm not putting them down. I know it's probably hard work, and they do really good work. But we decided, it's like the CRM, Sean. We're not going to build the CRM. It's a lot of work to build the CRM. We can just plug into them. And
That's right.
And there's a lot in any of them, not just one of them. So that's kind of our approach.
Yeah, we were lucky. It worked out. Yeah. We worked on this for 2 years. We were like, oh, the robots are coming. And then when the robots came, they came. Whoa. ChatGPT was a mind-blowing experience. Yeah. I knew ChatGPT was coming that quick. Whoa. Yeah.
Thomas was talking about robot food for 2 years, and I'm like, I just don't get it. And then all of a sudden ChatGPT came out. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I'm surprised we got this far in the episode, and we are just talking about ChatGPT, which everyone's talking about ChatGPT like crazy. My guess is, and just in the interest of time, is because I know you guys are integrating with, you're not using a free version, right? You guys are actually integrated in kind of that partner level with ChatGPT for analysis. So, the vCon data, right, is something that when you guys integrate with a ChatGPT, the analysis there is going to take you guys to this, what we've been talking about, like the depth of what's happening in the interaction with the customer, and extracting all the most valuable insights, prioritized to bring efficiency. Also remembering that these humans are keeping it empathetic on behalf of the dealership, right? Which is huge. I don't know because you guys are the experts here, if you guys want to share a little bit around, in the integration of that, the conversational data, maybe even some of the feedback on the analysis of kind of what you're doing. There are kind of takeaways there that you think that dealers maybe they
you may want to save that for another episode, Sean.
It goes deeper. Okay.
We've been already going for an hour and 15 minutes, but I think that's a great segue, because that's what we're really trying to get our head around right now, right, Thomas? Is we got all the data here. Like, how do we present this two ways to our agents and to our dealers, but not overload them with another dashboard or more things to do? Just really important information. And, Thomas also taught me about the difference between stagnant and real-time dashboards. And stagnant dashboards, we don't need any more of them. What's happening right now that I can see? That's what we're going after. So
exactly right.
So let's do this. Let's land this episode. Let's just find, it's a good parking spot. We're right up front, close to the building. So I say we do that because we can come back. I really want to dig in with you guys again on the next episode. Because there's more to talk about around a continuous feedback loop. I'm sure you guys are thinking about the training aspect of this. Obviously, let's unpack around conversational data. I think that will be really beneficial for dealers. But you guys are going to continue down that road of standardization and how you future-proof the dealership. And I think robot food, as you guys end this year and start into 2024, I think that will become something that people are also talking about and understanding the context. AI is a huge topic. The audience knows this. Everyone's either maybe a little scared of it or intimidated. And, dealers, history sometimes repeats itself, and maybe it doesn't have to in this case, where maybe you were a late adopter to all things internet, or you didn't quite understand how some of this digital transformation affected your advertising and marketing strategies. And then ultimately, that's had a huge impact on your process, which is exactly where Strolid, that's the world you guys live in. That's the ocean that you guys are.
Well, Thomas has told me recently, you don't necessarily want to be the first Netscape or AOL. And I agree with that. Like, this is a lot more learning to do, so the dealers out there that are getting worried about AI, this is just going to continue to evolve and get better.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Google, not the first search engine. Facebook, not the first social network.
Yeah.
Are you guys jumping on MySpace later today?
Well, you know what? Alta Vista's down.
So is Lycos.
Yeah. And just for my final words, Vinny's completely right. And being a communications engineer, I was in the market before the internet, and we built the internet. It's what we do for a living. And one of the things that I remember definitely saying to a friend of mine is, my mom does not want to be on the internet. Why does she ever want to do that? And it was 93, right? Mm-hmm. There was no web. We hadn't gotten there yet. And so this is a very long market. But just like you said, Sean, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And there's a lot to be done here. A lot of opportunities, a lot of new world, a lot of blue water. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Vinny, any final thoughts before we shut it down?
No, I agree with Thomas. I think, I'm totally excited about the future instead of worried about it. I think it's just a matter of, I enjoy the stimulation of change and new things and finding new ways to compete, get better and things like that. And so this is right up my alley. I know Thomas is excited about it. Our whole team's excited about it. Our whole team now finally understands it. Because when Thomas was ripping the phone system out of the place and putting a new one in, they weren't too happy with them.
They weren't happy. No.
Well, I think we've uncorked a great new series of conversations for the podcast, and I'm really glad for that. I think it's really, really helpful for dealers to have companies like yours that are actually putting this information out, dispelling rumors, but also your solutions. Right? You're not just like, well, what's the problem? You guys are actively working on, but utilizing solutions, and you have a plan. And I love that. I think it's extremely helpful, and I love your attitude and disposition about the whole thing. So I will say this, we've found the perfect place to park the episode. So we'll park it here regarding this episode and all information that you see from our episodes. If you like it, you love it, or none of the above, we'd still love to hear from you. The Dealer Insights podcast gets better with your comments, questions, feedback, recommendations. Yes, the ones that come from you. So if it's this episode or any others, feel free to drop them in the comments section. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also send information directly to info@strolid.com. And that's spelled STROLID, strolid.com. Until next time, stay strong and solid. All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.